On September 29, 1833, the royal palace in Madrid was very quiet. Inside, a 48-year-old man named King Ferdinand VII of Spain was very sick and dying in bed. He had a serious illness that he got from living a wild and unhealthy life. Doctors were trying hard to help him, but his body was covered in painful sores, and he was in a lot of pain. This was especially surprising because he had called himself a strong protector of Catholic values and Spanish traditions. But his actions in life didn't match his words. In the end, the way he lived caused him great suffering, and many people no longer respected him. But how did King Ferdinand VII become one of the most disliked kings in Spain's history? To understand the moral downfall of this monarch, we must return to the beginning of his life and uncover the sordid secrets that forever stained the Spanish crown. Ferdinand was born on October 14th in the year 1784 in a Spain that was still one of Europe's great powers, son of Charles IV and Maria Luisa of Parma. He grew up in a corrupt palace environment where sexual intrigues and betrayals were more common than royal audiences. His mother, Queen Maria Luisa, was notorious for her numerous lovers, including the infamous Manuel Godoy, who practically governed Spain through his influence over the royal family. From his youth, Ferdinand displayed a disturbing personality at 10 years of age. He already showed signs of extreme cruelty toward animals and servants. Contemporary accounts describe how he tortured cats for entertainment and forced servants into humiliating acts for his amusement. His tutors, alarmed by his behavior, attempted to correct him, but were systematically dismissed or transferred whenever they opposed the prince's desires. Ferdinand's education was a complete disaster. Unlike other European princes who received rigorous intellectual training, he showed interest only in satisfying his most basic impulses. He rejected his studies, despised art and literature, and demonstrated shocking ignorance about matters of state. His only passion was spying on the intimate activities of courtiers through holes he ordered made in the walls of palace chambers. In the year 182, at 18 years old, Ferdinand married his cousin Maria Antonia of Naples. The marriage was supposed to civilize him, but had the opposite effect. Intimate court reports reveal that Ferdinand subjected his young wife to humiliating and degrading sexual practices. Maria Antonia, an educated and religious princess, was traumatized by her husband's abuse. She began living practically in seclusion, avoiding her spouse's company as much as possible. The situation worsened dramatically when Ferdinand discovered he could use his position to coerce women at court. He began blackmailing ladies in waiting, threatening to ruin their families if they refused to satisfy his perverse desires. He developed a particular obsession with married women, considering their seduction a form of power over their husbands. Many nobles were forced to silently accept the dishonor of their wives to maintain their positions at court. In the year 186, the premature death of Maria Antonia at 21 years old raised suspicions among court physicians. Though officially she died of tuberculosis, persistent rumors suggested she had been poisoned or died of heartbreak due to her husband's constant abuse. Ferdinand showed complete indifference to his wife's death, cynically commenting that he was now free to seek more interesting pleasures. The Napoleonic invasion of Spain in the year 188 should have been a moment of national unity, but Ferdinand saw in the crisis an opportunity for his own interest during the mutiny of Aranjuez, which forced his father Charles IV's abdication. Ferdinand demonstrated impressive cowardice. Instead of leading resistance against the French, he preferred to negotiate secretly with Napoleon, offering to deliver Spain in exchange for personal guarantees. The meeting in Bayonne between Ferdinand and Napoleon revealed the true nature of the future. Spanish King French witnesses described Ferdinand as a despicable man who humbly begged the French emperor and offered any concession to maintain his personal privileges. Napoleon, accustomed to dealing with cowardly kings, was still impressed by Ferdinand's base character, later commenting that he had never known anyone so vile occupying a throne during his forced exile at the castle of Valencia. Ferdinand lived years of luxury and idleness at Napoleon's expense. Instead of planning his country's liberation, he dedicated himself entirely to carnal pleasures. He corrupted French servants, organized orgies with other Spanish exiles, and contracted his first venereal disease with a local prostitute. Letters intercepted by French spies revealed his constant requests for female entertainment and his total indifference to the Spanish people's suffering. Ferdinand's return to Spain in the year 1814 should have marked the beginning of a new era, but brought only the restoration of tyranny and depravity. One of his first actions was to re-establish the Inquisition, not from religious conviction, but because inquisitorial tribunals gave him absolute power to persecute enemies and blackmail families. He used heresy accusations to force women to submit to his desires, promising forgiveness in exchange for sexual favors. His second marriage in the year 1816 to Isabel of Banza was even more sordid than the first. Isabel, a Portuguese princess of only 19 years, was literally sold by her family to consolidate a political alliance. Ferdinand, now 32 years old and already marked by debauchery, subjected his young wife to even woe. As abused and that inflicted on his first wife, the Spanish court became a den of corruption under Ferdinand III. He institutionalized the system of royal favors where public positions were granted to men willing to offer their wives or daughters for royal pleasure. Ministers were chosen not for competence, but for the beauty of their female family members. The king maintained an informal harem within the palace itself, with women who were officially ladies-in-waiting, but served exclusively to satisfy his lust. Ferdinand's sexual practices were of a perversity that shocked even the relaxed standards of the era. Secret court documents discovered centuries later reveal his obsession with humiliating rituals and sadistic practices. He forced his victims into degrading acts while being observed by other courters, transforming intimacy into public spectacle for his sick amusement. The situation reached its lowest point with the death of Isabel of Banza in the year 1818. Like his first wife, Isabel died young under suspicious circumstances. Doctors reported that she showed signs of severe physical trauma and deep depression. Her last confessor revealed years later that she had expressed the desire to die to escape the unspeakable torments she suffered at her husband's hands. Ferdinand again showed indifference to his wife's death, marrying for the third time, just months later. Maria Josefa Amalia of Saxony. His new victim was only 20 years old when she was delivered to the depraved king. The marriage lasted only 2 years before she too died under mysterious conditions, increasing suspicions that Ferdinand was literally killing his wives through physical and psychological abuse. During the decade of 1820, Ferdinand reached the height of his depravity. He simultaneously maintained dozens of mistresses, including nuns whom he forced to break their vows through blackmail and threats. He developed a particular obsession with virgins, offering generous rewards to those who brought him inexperienced young women. Desperate families would sell their daughters to the king, preferring dishonor to absolute misery. Spain's political situation deteriorated rapidly under his reign. While Ferdinand indulged in vice, the Spanish Empire crumbled. American colonies declared independence one after another. The economy collapsed, and Spanish society plunged into chaos. The king, however, remained completely oblivious to national problems, concerned only with satisfying his increasingly extreme appetites. His fourth and final marriage in the year 1829 to Maria Cristina of Bourbon II. Sicilies was a last desperate act to produce an heir. Maria Cristina, at 23 years old, was the only wife who managed to survive Ferdinand, but this was mainly due to the fact that he was already gravely ill when they married. Syphilis contracted in one of his adventures with prostitutes had begun affecting his brain and diminishing his capacity to cause harm. Ferdinand's final years were prolonged agony. The venereal disease slowly consumed his body, causing repugnant ulcers, constant pain, and progressive mental deterioration. His doctors, despite all efforts, could not hide the shameful nature of his condition. The court whispered about the king's deplorable state, who had become a pathetic spectacle of physical and moral decomposition. At the end of September, in the year 1833, Ferdinand III lay dying in his chambers, abandoned by almost everyone. His former victims had died or fled. His courters avoided him due to the nauseating smell of his wounds, and even his doctors attended only out of professional obligation. The man who once terrorized defenseless women was now defenseless himself, consumed by his own depraved choices. Death finally came on September 29th, ending one of the most shameful reigns in European history. Ferdinand VII died as he lived in a sordid and despicable manner. There were no sincere tears at his funeral, only the relief of a nation that finally found itself free of its torturer. His only legitimate daughter, the future Isabel II, inherited a ruined kingdom and a crown forever stained by her father's depravity. The legacy of Ferdinand III is one of the darkest in Spanish monarchy. During his 20 years of effective reign, he transformed Spain from a great power into a backward and despised country. His obsession with carnal pleasures cost the nation its dignity, its colonies, and its position on the world stage. More than that, he established a terrible precedent of how absolute power can completely corrupt a human being today. More than 2 centuries later, Ferdinand III is remembered not as a king, but as a predator who used the crown to satisfy the lowest impulses of human nature. His story serves as a dark reminder that not even royal blood can protect someone from the consequences of a life dedicated to vice and cruelty. The most perverted king in Spanish history died as he deserved alone, sick and despised by all who knew.